meeting and let me know.
You're live, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. And welcome everyone. Welcome members of council and members of our staff and members of the public that are joining us for this meeting on Wednesday, January the 13th, 2021. This is our fourth budget meeting. So it's a special budget meeting discussion. We've got a limited agenda, so we'll get started. First item is item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated January 13, 2021 as presented. I have a mover and seconder on the motion, please. Let's see, Mr. Walker and Councillor Deneen. Councillor Walker, Councillor Deneen. All right, any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the motion carries. The approval of the agenda. Item 2 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anybody have any disclosures for discussion? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll, if there's anything comes up during the meeting, of course, we'll deal with it at that time. Just bring it forward. All right, so council, so this is the final budget meeting, and well, it's not the final, but it is the budget meeting that then sets the process in play, where our treasurer would then set the budget. So welcome Kelly McDonald, our director of finance and treasurer, and Ron Mather is also with us. He is our deputy treasurer, so I'm glad that Ron's here as well. Kelly, you have a presentation that you'd like to make to us and some comments, and then we'll have a discussion. So welcome, Ms. McDonald. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, members of council, for coming out on a Wednesday for a council meeting. It's a little unusual, but what isn't this year? I've got a bit of a presentation that I'm going to go through with you, very similar to the slide deck that was sent out and is attached to the agenda. And then I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments, and then it's back in your hands to discuss. Hoping to come out of this meeting with a resolution accepting the budget. And then, as the mayor mentioned, that's when we get to work on doing the tax rate. So, let's see if this works. Keep our fingers crossed. All right, with any luck, everybody's got the Clearview Township budget in front of them now. So for 2021, we're currently at a total of 4.26 million, and that includes both the county requisitions, the Education Act requisitions, OPP, NVCA, all of our little partners that we pay additional funds to. You'll notice that our percentage increase is now at 1.59%. When we left the public meeting, it was actually at 1.8. I have received the final growth numbers. However, we were estimating about 150,000. And our growth actually came in at 209,538. So that's where we go from the 1.8 down to 1.59. Oops. So out of every dollar that we collect, this is where it goes. So 51 cents stays within the township supported programs. 32 cents goes to our partners. So Simple County, OPP, NVCA, and education receives 17 cents. So this is the breakdown that average homeowner will be paying. Right now, the assessment is showing as $307,000 for the average residential home. We know this is low, but it is based on the 2016 assessment. MPAC was to do another assessment in 2020. Unfortunately, that got put sort of off to the side. So as we sit right now, the average home in Clearview Township is $307,000. And the entire tax bill would be approximately $3,250, which is a $53 increase over the 2020 tax bill. So this is a breakdown of where our revenues come from. Now, as you can see, the majority of our revenues are property taxes. User fees are primarily water, sewer rates, arena rentals, things like that. Development charges are for very specific capital projects related to growth. 4% comes in from grants, 4% is from reserve transfers, 4% is from other income. And this just gives you a brief description of what each type of revenue source is. So of the 51 cents that Clearview retains, the Public Works Department gets 22 cents, Parks and Rec is 8 cents, Fire and Emergency Services is 7 cents, General Administration is 6, Library 4, Planning 2, and IT and Bylaw are 1 cent each. What I'm going to run through is a quick briefing of the staff proposed projects as well as the council proposed projects that are currently in this budget. So we have the cemetery management software, the urban canopy reserve, the accessibility improvements for the council chambers are being carried forward. We're hoping 2021 is our year, but we'll see. Downtown beautification projects continue. There's a joint physician recruitment task force, and the affordable senior housing reserve continues as well. Fire and emergency services, they're looking at the new hall replacement, searching different options. They've got their ongoing SCBA replacement and the fire master plan as well as being pushed to 2021. For parks and recreation, you've got the station park redevelopment, the Nottawa Ballpark Pavilion design, and the Stainer and Arena Library landscaping. When I say landscaping, it's not trees and flowers, it's more curbs, all of the essential infrastructure for the parking facility at the new hall and arena and library. Sorry. Public Works obviously is going to be quite busy. They're doing the bridge replacement on the 2 bridges. They have $200,000 for the installation of replacement sidewalks. Another $200,000 is set aside for the gravel maintenance. There's the signal light with the Hogback Road, the County Road 91 speed sign, and rural intersection painting. And this is just a brief list of which particular roads are scheduled for repaving in 2021. So the water and sewer department, of course, are self-funded, so this doesn't affect taxation at all. However, there are a few highlighted projects, the Klondike Park Road well site, Stainer Main Street water service replacement, and the Creemore well water supply investigation. And that is the brief presentation. It doesn't encompass all of the slides that I provided you with. I can share my screen showing the usual budget summary. It is a little difficult to see though. That's why I printed out those individual, this is your operating, this is your capital, and here's the increase. So that is my presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Kelly. I'm just going to start with a quick question, something that you and I talked about briefly on the phone. In your early slide, you indicated $307,000 as an impact amount. So we just want to clarify that that is residential properties, best as we understand it, right? That's
Absolutely.
the residential properties. It doesn't include all properties of Clearview Township. It's just a number that's used to give an understanding about where residential tax rates will lie at a $307,000 assessment, correct?
Exactly. So back in 2016, when MPAC did their reassessment, $307,000 was the current value of a residential property in Clearview. So it doesn't include industrial, commercial, farm. It's strictly residential.
Right, and that would be also representative of an average, because to be fair, there will be some properties that are significantly more than that. There'll be other properties that would be significantly less than that. So it's an average number based on all residential properties that are taxed in the Township of Clearview.
Absolutely. And that date is very important to keep in mind, because I know anybody that's kept abreast of the real estate market in our area, $307,000 is not the average home price.
No, no kidding. If there was a house for sale at $307,000, it'd be snapped up before it was even listed. So that's how the
my kids would have been moved into it before the first lockdown was over.
Thank you very much. No doubt. All right, so let's open up the floor to members of council. If there's any questions to the treasurer or members of staff, because I do have, looks like I've got pretty well all of the departments represented here. I think library is not represented, so maybe I'll defer to the clerk if there's anything on library. Nevertheless, members of council, I'll look for your cards. McKechnie was the first one I saw, and then Patterson. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is this where we ask for minor amendments to the budget, or is this the appropriate time for?
Yeah, well, we're in, I should have stated that earlier, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor. We are in a workshop session here because we're still discussing a budget. There will be a motion that will be to direct, which will be a council motion. But we're still workshop because we are discussing the budget. And, you know, it's difficult because, of course, the procedure is laid out early in the process here that we have all these meetings that we have, and then we have a public meeting where we present all of our work to the public. And then this meeting is to wrap up everything from comments from the public. So certainly as a councillor, it's your prerogative to bring forward questions and ideas right now. So this is a workshop session at this point, and then we'll move into straight council to pass a resolution, which I believe is item 3.2 on the agenda. So is that clear for everybody? Any questions on procedure? Good enough? All right, go ahead, Councillor McKechnie.
Okay, well, I think I understand. So yes, I mean, these two items that I have are based on public feedback. And so I would like these to be included in the budget that we vote on. So I'll do the first one here. And so as you all know, I'm the council representative for the Creemore BIA. And so I'll read this out in motion form, and we can deal with it either as a motion or just informally if you want. Anyway, whereas the Creemore BIA has been searching for storage space for its Santa float and event supplies, and whereas the Township of Clearview has been unable to assist the BIA in this regard, and whereas the consolidated Creemore BIA reserve fund currently stands at $8,694, now therefore be it resolved that the consolidated Creemore BIA reserve fund be released to the Creemore BIA for the purposes of storage, rental, and event planning purposes. So basically, as you all know, the businesses in the township, they've been decimated by COVID, and increasing the levy on the BIA businesses, I don't think that's appropriate at this time when they've got no income coming in, or many of them don't have any income coming in. And when this COVID pandemic is over with, hopefully it'll be later this year, certainly by the summer of 2022, we need big events in the community, in Creemore and such. And we need lots of them to let the public know that we are open for business again. There is a fund, reserve fund with $8,694 in it. It's a Creemore BIA reserve fund. And all I'm asking is that reserve fund, and that reserve fund, my understanding, and I've talked to Kelly about this, is that it's been sitting there probably for 14 years, 16 years, something like that. It's been sitting there. It's basically a dormant fund. So I'm asking that money be released to the BIA so that they can use it towards storage space for their event supplies and the Santa float, should they wish to keep it. I'm not sure whether they're going to keep it or not, and also too for event planning and such. So anyway, that's the motion. I'm open to discussion on that now. So anyway.
All right. Thank you, Councillor. All right, just two things then. Let's look if there is a seconder so we can actually have a full-on discussion. Request to speak from the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, so seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Before then discussion, can I just clarify with the clerk? Because this is new to me, Doug. I wasn't aware of this. So Kelly, what's the status on that reserve account? $8,694. I must have missed it when I was reviewing them. What is that?
I've done a little bit of tracking on it, and it goes back to before 2004. From what I can see, and unless there's a councillor that maybe has a better knowledge of where it originated from, I believe it's unspent levy funds that were retained by the township. And this may have been prior to the BIA having its own bank account. But that's what I can track it to, is unspent funds from their levy. In today's world, they have their own bank account, their own checks. It would normally just funnel itself back into their own accounts.
Okay, that's probably why I wasn't even aware of it. If I can, Councillor Walker, since you're sort of our senior gentleman on this group, have you any comment on that? Do you recall any of that? 2004, it's certainly before me.
No, your worship, I didn't come back into 2004. I was out for those 10 years prior, so
There you go.
I'm not
Thank
sure anything about that at all.
All right, so we'll open it up. Has anybody got any questions of Councillor McKechnie on this motion and this recommendation? Councillor Leishman, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I did find the line. It's in the discretionary reserves and it's the second line.
Yeah.
And it's been there for quite a while, if I remember, because I've seen it for the last 2 terms that I've been here and always wondered why it wasn't being used. And if it did come out of their account or should be in their account, maybe we should put it back and then they can use it. So I kind of agree with Doug McKechnie that I'm sure that they're all hurting on the main street and the BIA, and yeah, an extra levy probably isn't a good idea right now. So if they need it for anything, I think we should pass it on to them.
All right, thank you very much. Good comment. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, Tom, yeah.
Yeah, I can confirm that came out of reserve fund. And Kelly's essentially got the right answer. Was when we were keeping the books, and it just sat there as reserve. It's been talked about every year since 2006, since I've been there. So I have no problem doing that. I'm one sense little saddened to hear that they have to call on their own funds, but so be it. There was quite a bit of discussion with CAO Sage. I guess now it started in 2019 that we were looking for Clearview Township property space, assuming the money's not going to be used to rent space from the township. So is the BIA, have they been given an answer that the township has no space for their equipment?
I can answer that.
Well, I'll let the mayor speak to that. Yeah, go ahead, Doug. I'll let you speak to that.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's right. I have been searching for that too, and I did consult with CAO Sage several times on this. His initial response, and frankly, to his credit, if you recall, Council, we own the FS Farm Supply building that's immediately south of the tourism office. But it's on a long-term lease with FS Farms. And initially there was a discussion that they would then be vacating that facility, and that would then be a building that would come available to us at the township. But as it turns out, they are staying for yet again another 12 months past. So it'll be better than 24 months before that space will become available. And then it will need a little bit of renovation to make it actually a suitable storage facility. Well, you know, council or future councilors are going to have to make a decision what to do with that particular building. But as you know, it's already in a long-term lease agreement with the previous owner, because FS Farms owned it previously and sold it as part of the package to the township. So if I may, I could ask Mike Ron. Mr. Ron has joined us. Mr. Ron, just recently I asked you if you could confirm that we had any space available. And Mike, can you advise council what you've discovered?
Certainly, Your Worship. So I'm going to go back a year and a half when the Public Works Department was shaken up with some retirements. When we started looking for a place to house the Creemore bus, we ran into some problems just doing that. Since then, we've, you know, with Todd and Dan and Terry, who is probably also here, we did a lot of shuffling around. So we've added a vacuum trailer to our fleet, which has to be stored indoors. Some other equipment that needs to be stored indoors. We have all of these new Christmas decorations, and I'm going to be, we're struggling to find a place to put everything, right? So when we add facilities, it's usually through the development charges background study. What we are doing when we look at the facility in New Lowell, there will be at least one extra bay for storage for things like, you know, parks equipment and sporting equipment and the stuff that Terry Vachon needs for his department. But there just isn't a place to house anything indoors right now. We could put our heads together and come up with an area, possibly, I don't want to say in a park or at the sewer plant or somewhere where we could add a building, because that would take some discussion amongst the management. But if that's something council wanted to entertain, and if we're talking like something like the size of a shed, we won't talk about shipping containers just yet, but there's different options. But to answer your question, there isn't any place to store additional things right now. We're starting to get crowded out at the works building as well. So as the town grows, we'll be looking at the DC income to look at expanding.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ron, appreciate that. Mr. Patterson, does that help answer your question regarding municipal space? All right, anything further? All right, thank you. Anybody else with any questions for the motion? Oh, yes, Councillor Deneen, I did see your card. I marked you down. Go ahead, Phyllis.
That's okay. Just irregardless of how the funds were put there, it's just a good housekeeping item anyway for accounting purposes. Kelly'd probably like to have it cleared up a bit, and I can definitely support sending it back to them. And no further levies this year. That's for certain. It's a good motion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, that makes sense. It does make sense. It doesn't impact our overall tax rate or our budget, but it does clean up some of the accounting, as Councillor Deneen has pointed out. Councillor McKechnie, anything further you want to add to that, or are we comfortable? We'll go with the motion.
No, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I'll call the motion as you've heard. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. So Kelly, you can make that arrangement for the BIA and work with their designated treasurer to get that happening. That's great. All right, Mr. McKechnie, you said you had a second. Just made a note here. You had a second one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. And first of all, I must apologize. The reason why I didn't let you know about that previous motion, because I was dealing with the BIA last night on that, and I didn't really put the motion together until late this morning. So anyway, that was the reason why that last motion came about sort of last minute. And thank you very much, Council. And once again, that will not, because that money's already in a reserve fund, that won't increase our taxes at all. So anyway, so the second motion that I have is, and once again, I'll read it out in the form of a motion. So whereas the individual settlement areas in Clearview Township host their own Santa Claus parades, and whereas the Township of Clearview participates in some of these parades with a float, and whereas the Santa floats at each parade are unique and therefore inconsistent, and whereas the strategic plan of the Township of Clearview places a focus on equality amongst communities and a consistent community brand, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Clearview look into sponsoring, possibly in collaboration with the service club, one Santa float to be used at all Santa parades in the township, and that up to $2,000 a year from the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund be earmarked towards maintenance of such float. And do you want me to speak to that now or get a seconder first?
Wow, that's an impressive motion. Certainly something I've heard about in the last year. So thank you for bringing it forward, Councillor McKechnie. I'll look for a seconder to bring us to a discussion. Councillor Broderick, I believe. Broderick is seconding it. Just okay. Thank you. So Councillor Broderick has seconded that. If Councillor McKechnie, do you want to speak further on this then?
Okay, I had notes written down there, but I can't find them. Just one second. Hang on. Anyway, no, I can't find my notes on that, so I'll just speak off the cuff here. So basically, yeah, I mean, that sort of came about this year and was sort of brought to my attention. And once again, part of it, the genesis of it was the fact that the Creemore BIA were searching for a place for their float and everything, and that's been ongoing for at least 8 months. And so anyway, and then I got looking around at all the Santa Claus parades, and they've all got different Santa floats, and some of them are really good. For instance, a Stainer, and I think that's done in conjunction with the Kinsman Club. And then the Singhampton's got their own float. I assume New Lowell does. Nottawa, Collingwood Lands, Santa rode in the back of a pickup truck in the Collingwood Lands float. So I got thinking, I thought, well, maybe we could do something a little bit more, a little bit better as a township, and for consistency purposes, and because we all are supposed to be one community. And So, and along, I know that your worship, you've talked to the Kinsman Club, or someone has in the past, and I'd like to see us maybe, reapproach them and maybe see if we could, in collaboration, preferably with the service club, sponsor the actual Santa float, and then that Santa float could go around to all the communities. If the communities wish, for instance, New Lowell may not want to have a Santa float, or Singhampton may not want to be involved. That's entirely up to them. But if we can offer it and have have the township sponsor it, I think that would be good. And once again, I don't want to see us raising taxes for this, but we've got a lot of money in the tax stabilization fund, and I thought, well, maybe if we could throw 1,000 or 2,000 in from the tax stabilization fund, at least in the first year, just for maintenance on the Santa float, initially, and we would go from there. So anyway, there you go. There's the motion. Have at her.
It's a good one, Doug. Thank you. I have to be honest with you. I've had this conversation with members of the BIA, with members of the Kinsman Club, a couple of conversations with members of our staff over it. I'm glad you brought it forward, and this is the appropriate time to bring it forward. So thank you for that. My initial comment would be simply that while we do have the tax stabilization account, the type of dollar values that you're speaking about, Mr. McKechnie, could easily be brought into the granting account, which we have. This year, we have a little bit of surplus as a result of the good work that Deputy Mayor Burton and Councillor Leishman have done. So we could easily access some funds through there. And as you know, that can be done at a motion of council pretty quickly, as we've demonstrated with work that we did with the food bank. So I think this is a good idea as a project, and I'd like to see us investigate this with our staff and have a conversation with members of the Kinsman Club, because they're the ones that currently run a float, and to help support your motion that we work with the service club. So that's my initial comment on this, and I'm open to hear some more questions. I see the Deputy Mayor's got his card up, so we'll go right to the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to Councillor McKechnie's motion that the funding comes from the grant reserve that we have. And yeah, because I'd rather keep the tax stabilization reserve for what it's meant for. So that said, that's my friendly amendment, is that it comes out of the community grants fund.
All right. Mr. McKechnie, first on the friendly, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm more than comfortable. As a matter of fact, I had thought about that originally. I thought, oh yeah, that's take it from the grant fund. But then I thought, no, that's probably wouldn't fly. Probably wouldn't get like support on that. So anyway, but yeah, I'm good with that. It makes more sense to take it. It makes more sense to take it from that fund. So, but
yeah, well, I think it kind of fits to what the Deputy Mayor said, because they're a service club and they could apply for something like that anyway as a service club. So that's something there. Now, Councillor Leishman, you had your card up. Go ahead, Connie.
Thank you. I think, Doug, that we're going to run into the same problem that we have with the BIA, finding storage for this. So hopefully Mr. Ron will be able to come up with something for us, like he maybe offered, before we get the float finished, so we have a place to put it. If I remind everybody, we did make a float for our anniversary. It was the cake, and it was very well received, and we used it in all the parades. So I understand where Councillor McKechnie is coming from, and I do agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of council? All right, I'm going to conclude then with my last comment. I think this is a really good example of us trying to bring consistency across the township with, by having that float or participating in these Santa Claus parades and being consistent. So to support what Councillor Leishman said, we did use that little cake, and it was a consistent sort of messaging across the whole area when we used it. So I think this is a positive thing. So I would suggest, Doug, Councillor McKechnie, that in your motion, that this be directed to staff to come back and bring us back a program that works with a service club. Because we have to meet with the Kinsmen, obviously, and have that discussion with them. So McKechnie, you put up your card. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to Connie's point there, yeah, I mean, if we did the float on our own, yeah, we would run into the problem of a storage. So that's why, I would prefer that staff, initially deal with doing this in collaboration with preferably the Kingsman Club, because they have a lovely float. And, if we can help them out, make it even lovelier, put our name on the side of it as well. And I think that would be the ideal. And then they would they would be responsible for the storage of it and such. So anyway, and if it can't be done in collaboration with the service club, and it's just a township thing, well, storage might be an issue, and we may have to drop the whole thing. But at least it gets staff sort of refocused on this, and let's give it another shot. We've got 11 months to go before we have to use it. So anyway, but I know I agree with Connie that storage may be a problem if we do it ourselves, and that's why I'm hoping to do it in collaboration with someone else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? I think the direction is pretty clear. So thank you for that. I don't see anything further, so I'll move on. All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimous. Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. I appreciate that. Now, Councillor Patterson, I believe is next. Councillor Patterson, you're on my list. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, Kelly, thanks for the presentation. Just a couple comments on how we review our budget, maybe some additional information, if available, for the next time we meet. Just looking at the trends, like what's happening. I'm just going to go through a couple of your charts as they were presented. On the first chart where you talk about the breakdown of 2021 tax dollars, I think we're all aware of the fact that over the past 12 years that I have records for, I could put my hands on, we've been, our share of the county budget's been trending down. Used to be around 4.6 and now around 4%. Might have been higher than 4.6, but and we know that the word out in the street right now is that we're going to probably get less support from the lower county increases that offset some of our increased spending. The result will be our tax base, so our tax rate will start to go up. So if you have any comments, what the future outlook in that trend is it going to continue down? Is it going to ramp, stay level, or is it going to get steeper down? It would be a nice notation to the final meeting on our budget. Just in preparing us for nothing else for next year, for the next budget. So the other one that I had comments on was the revenue share, the revenue that we get from the various tax classes. Property taxes have stayed at about 56% for a few years, which is kind of interesting because we've been getting growth. The only difference I saw this year versus last year was development charges are 9% instead of 10%. That's not my concern. Most of my concern about the balance of revenues and perhaps where our economic development initiatives could help us is that we try to settle try to balance residential property tax with our other property tax sources, commercial, industrial, and so on. So if you had any comments, we had started an analysis of the shift in our tax base. There's two trends that we were tracking. We were tracking the shift from residential tax into Creemore and Stainer. More and more, we're relying on our two regional urban areas to pay the taxes. If that growth is there, we should be seeing supportive commercial and industrial growth. And if that's the case, we should start to see that reflected in that tax shift. So it's something I'd like to monitor. If you have something today, I'd like to see it next time we meet. If you don't, then it's something I just comment on. Because I think it's something that will help us understand not only where we're getting the money, but where we have to spend our money effectively, the strategic planning of our budget. So that's my comment on that. Jump in if you think it's a stupid idea or you've got information. I'm just going to go through your charts. And then this will seem like Groundhog Day, but I'm going to say it anyways. I still dream of the days that we have a 5-year program that shows a 2-year budget, one approved, one proposed, first and second year, and 3, 4, and 5 placeholders for our financial outlooks. And we can all think of examples of what we know we're going to spend money on, but not in 2021, and not just the multi-year spending that we approved in 2021 that spills into 2022, but also the things we know we have to build a reserve fund. Bridges come to mind, senior housing comes to mind. The reserve building denotes the fact that council is aware that we have future spending. We know staff has spending plans out 5 to 10 years, and it's a good resource we could tap into. I think council should be more cognizant, having done the current year, spend a meeting like today on future outlooks, set up the next budget session because it's fresh in our mind. So I think that's something I'd still like to see. I don't know if you were working on it for this year, but I certainly would like to reiterate my request that we do it next year. And there will be time for us to set up the 2021 budget process, but I hope we started earlier, COVID permitting. But I appreciate the effort you put in, the first full budget. Yeah, I guess it was your first full budget. You kind of got in the middle. And I don't think, in my mind, we need to replicate the full budget that Edward did, although I continue using this. So if there's any way that we could keep some of this background information, like one of the things I like, I'm just going to highlight one thing that I found very useful is we talked about debt. I don't know if people have seen the debt charts. We do pretty well. We borrow money, we debenture for 20 years, we try to keep it to that. But some of that servicing of the debt, only about 25, well, less than that, maybe about 14, 50% is funded by taxation. But I think that's going to increase because some of our capital spending, we can't just get from grants or DCs or from developers. So I'd like to keep an eye on that. So there's a couple things in here that maybe the next time we have a workshop, next year's budget, we go through that book and say, I like to keep this and we don't need that. So not trying to make work for you, but there is some good information and Edward did a good job, I think, building a good base there. So I'd like to see some of it continue on. So those are my comments. Thanks for your effort. And I think we did a good job getting it down to where we are, 1.59.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. And to Kelly McDonald, I want to tell you that I have great confidence that this has been good work that you've put forward, and I thank you very, very much for it. And I think that when we change senior managers, we get changes in how things are done. We're probably going to see that at this township in this community when we change the CAO coming up. So it's the same thing. So I'm very happy that Kelly has put her own touch on it, and so I thank you very much for all that effort that you've done. Kelly, do you have any comments you want to support any of the things that Tom brought up? Particularly, I have a question for you to support Tom's question about the 5-year budget forecasting. I know sometimes Tom and I don't always see eye to eye on everything, but I absolutely support the idea that we project in 5-year projections. And I can give examples of that, such as the Public Works Department. We know when we're going to be purchasing a new plow. Fire department, we know when we're going to be purchasing another pumper truck. So do you have any idea on how we could present that as a community-wide sort of thing where we have a 5-year budget process with projections? Kelly?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Patterson. Each department head does actually have those operating 5 years out. Capital is anywhere from 10 to 100 years out, depending on which department it is. If it's water and sewer, they have a 100-year capital budget set out. There may be small additions here and there. The reason it isn't presented in the format we have right now, especially this year, I don't know that you'd even be able to see it on the screen. It's not a great program to print out informative reports for council, but absolutely, I'm 100% on board. I would like to see budget discussions that are at least for 2 years setting the budget, and then 5 years out reviewing what those changes during those 2-year periods do, again, to the 5-year tax rate.
Yeah.
Hopefully for 2022's budget, we are doing 2022 to 2027, and we can have a discussion about, okay, if we move this from here to 2 years out, what happens?
Right.
Again, it's not easy on a Zoom meeting. As I said, some of my spreadsheets won't even show nicely so you guys can read them, let alone a 5-year VATM report. I think you'd probably be pulling your hair out. The discussion with the county sets the tax ratios. So as far as what we charge residential versus what we charge commercial and industrial, that's set at the county level. I can absolutely do a trend analysis for you, Councillor Patterson, if that would help. But we really don't have control over that. And again, the debt chart 100% will be included in the budget package. This is sort of the budget presentation for the draft budget. I apologize you didn't get one for 2020, but as we all know, it kind of went downhill real fast. So, but there will absolutely be one for the next meeting, presumably April, May, when we set the tax rate.
Thank you.
I hope that answered all your questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you, Tom, for bringing those forward. All right. Any other members of council have any questions of Kelly in her presentation and/or questions or amendments or questions about the budget? Looking for anybody? All right. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Before we go to 3.2, I have a couple items I want to present. I did make a commitment at a council meeting that we held that we had 4 items that Councillor Patterson had brought forward, which they're important. So I just want to go through them to make sure that our staff are still focused on providing information to council to help us make decisions in the future. So I'm going to start with the Collingwood Street Brit project. If you recall, council, we did pass a resolution that directed the Public Works Department through engineering to add one of the options, such as that we've added the option for discussion about possibly closing the Collingwood Street Bridge and reassigning any monies that we would have spent on replacing that bridge to rebuilding the roads that are in and around that bridge structure. So because we haven't come to the decision that we're going to start that project, I wanted, and I appreciate the support of council in the motion, that would make sure that that option is available for engineering so that they can present us with some information that will help us make a full decision about the roads in and around that little culvert that need to be replaced and how that would look. So that discussion will happen sometime in 2021, in my hope. I know that Mr. Ron and Mr. Perot are going to pay attention to that. If I could just get one of the 2 gentlemen to come on and just acknowledge that they do recognize that we're going to be looking at that project, and you're going to be discussing that with engineering. Mr. Perot, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we actually just had a discussion with our engineers this morning about that, and setting a path forward, to do that analysis. I'm not sure that there was a dollar amount assigned to that item, so we may have to report back to council once we hear back from our engineers and what it will entail to provide a synopsis of or options for that bridge or the closure of it.
Okay, well, you can report back to council and let us know what you come up with, but I'm just glad that council had that opportunity. All right, thanks, Dan. The other one to the Deputy Mayor, Social and Senior Housing Project. As you know, our former CAO did make contact with the county, and we are still hoping to have a workshop with council to discuss what an affordable housing project may look like in our community. So that is one of the items that will still be on our agenda for us to discuss. It'll simply be a workshop of information that we will then use to help us see what that would look like in the future, and how the community can support that continuing in our budget. So that is moving forward. Small hall renovation is obviously a really big one, and it's not getting any easier, that's for sure. If I can ask Terry to join us for a moment. Terry and I had a conversation about the small halls, and confirmed that we still need to schedule meetings with our board members from various boards to have an honest, open, and frank discussion with them about the future and what the renovation may or may not look like in each of our halls. So Terry, can you outline what you're hoping to do with council over the coming months in regards to bringing us up to date on information for small halls?
Yes, for sure. Thanks, Your Worship. So just again, going back to last year, council did receive a Burnside and Associates report that gave council a pretty good idea of what it would cost to either meet provincial standards with respect to accessibility or our FADS standards, that those are a little bit over and above the minimum standards. So the council back in, I think it was April, decided that they wanted to have a face-to-face workshop amongst staff and council to determine options for our halls and the boards to consider, and also put a bit of a financial plan around those options. So we obviously haven't had those face-to-face workshop yet, Your Worship. I think we're going to be looking at council in the very near future to make a decision on, do you still want to wait to be able to have a face-to-face workshop and put together some options with some financial plans? Or did you want to have them through a Zoom-like discussion like we're having now? And once we have those options, we'll put a plan to meet the hall boards and present those options to them, and then hopefully make some final decisions. So Your Worship, always open to council's feedback on, do you want to wait? Do you want to start doing that now to have those workshop meetings? Do you want those now? Do you want to wait till we get out of this COVID? Always open to that, and staff, we're always ready whenever you are.
Great, thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. So if I can, don't go away, Terry. Kelly, if you could join us for one more moment. Kelly, can you just outline what the reserve would look like for the small hall AODA renovation through 2021? What's that reserve dollar amount going to look like right after this year?
Thank you, Your Worship. At the end of 2021, we're projecting it to be $1.516 million. And the initial modified FADS projection, I believe, was $4 million for the renovations. So we are $3.5 million off what it would cost for the modified FADS renovations.
Okay. All right. And thank you for that. And also for council's information and information for the public. We continue to communicate with Minister Cho, who is our Minister for Seniors and AODA compliance issues. So we have not had any further luck or any announcements from them, but there are some commitments that were made also prior to COVID. So I know the provincial government's very busy dealing with a lot of other financial crises, but this is certainly something that's on there. It was on Minister Cho's desk. So I'll commit to you that I will be renewing that conversation with Minister Cho as soon as we can, and we'll see what we can come up with. Okay, now for council, do you have any questions about an opinion that Terry's suggesting we have this meeting? Yes, Tom, for sure. I'm hoping you were going to jump in there. Anybody got any questions or comments about hosting these meetings? We do need to meet with our volunteers because I desperately want to hear what they have to say. Tom, do you want to go first? And then I see John Broderick. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so I appreciate you mentioning it. I thought you were wrapping up, but I will speak to the small halls specifically. I did take the time to talk to a couple of people in the halls. They have no problem. They're anxious I'm sure Councillor Leishman would agree. Any means possible, Zoom works for everything else. I didn't hear any pushback. What I heard was, why aren't we doing something now? And the answer is the dollars are limited, priorities are important, and et cetera, et cetera. It would mean that we would have to get in and work as a working group, all of the halls, whether it's individual meetings first, whatever the format Council and Terry and the halls themselves prefer. But it's doable, and people are anxious. So I think the audience is there in terms of the small halls from the point I talked to. And I think others that maybe are reluctant for some reason should be told that they need to be part of the greater discussion, because their priorities as ours should be heard, and we have to set the priorities having talked to everyone. So those are my comments on the small hall.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Broderick is next, and then I'm looking for anybody else. Okay, go ahead, John Walker. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. It appears that by the time the vaccinations get rolled out, we're going to be dealing with COVID at least till next fall before we get enough numbers to approach herd immunity. So in my opinion, we really should begin the meetings in a Zoom format if we're going to move forward with this. I think we need to get started at it.
Okay, so Terry, keep writing. Thank you, John. Mr. Walker is next, and then I have McKechnie and then Lamers. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say the same thing. I think we need to get started with these meetings because we do have a major decision to make first, and that is, do we keep the halls or do we not? And that's the first thing we have to answer. And then from there, if we keep, then it's a matter of moving forward with costs and engineering plans, etc. So I think the sooner we start with this, the better off everybody will be, the small halls and ourselves, knowing the direction that we plan to take with this adventure.
Thank you very much. And before we go on, I want to recognize and acknowledge that you brought that up about what we do is whether, we have to make the decision on the actual future of them, whether we're keeping them, whether we're selling them, whether we're renovating them. Those are the type of questions that I would like to have conversation with board members, because to be frank, the board members know those halls a whole lot better than any of us. And so I want to hear from them about what they feel the future of that building is in their neighborhoods. And so to me, that's the big question that I'd like to ask. It perhaps may be a difficult question, maybe a difficult conversation. And that's why I'm hoping that we could do it in person. But I'm starting to support the ideal that perhaps we do it by Zoom, because I believe we're all becoming accustomed to doing a little better job communicating by Zoom. It's you wouldn't have thought 12 months ago this is how it would be. So thank you for that, Robert Walker. I appreciate you bringing that forward. Okay, Mr. McKechnie is next, Doug, and then I have Mr. Lamers. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to put my voice forward and say that, I think that we need to do it fairly soon. And I don't really care whether we meet in person or via Zoom. Probably Zoom is the best format right now, but I think the sooner the better. But I think we have to do it. We have to workshop as a council first, recognizing that each hall is unique, and that we can't be handling them the same each amongst them all. So we have to determine what we're going to offer each hall, and then go to the hall boards themselves on a one-to-one basis and tell them that, and then discuss it with them. We may have to meet as a council again, but I've got two small halls in my ward, and one's a very big hall and one's very small. And I don't think that they could be they can be dealt with equally. I think that that they have their own requirements and everything. So I think we need to meet as a council to determine what we're going to offer each unique hall. And I'd like to see us get going on it sooner rather than later. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Just to be be clear, we got Lamers, and then I see Deneen, and Connie, did you have your card up there too? Yeah. Not sure. Okay, I'll put you in there. Mr. Lamers is next then.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, we have an evening hall board meeting, and on tomorrow night's agenda,
Yep.
they're going to be asking questions about the renovations on the hall. So, yeah, we're going to have to get together. We're going to be in this Zoom meetings for a while, so we're going to have to set a budget meeting or a workshop meeting to start discussing these halls, because everybody is anxious to get going on the renovations or what's happening. So, yes, it's time to get going, and it's going to be Zoom because we're not going to be meeting in public probably in 2021.
Well, you guys got some deep predictions going on there. Thanks, John. Okay, Councillor Deneen, you're next, and then Connie Leishman. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Hi there, thanks. I know there wasn't any monetary value associated with this, but I just wanted to reiterate or mention once again about the request for the staff to look into the feasibility of a sports pad, a multi-use sports pad at the McKean Memorial Park. I know Terry had mentioned it. That he would look into it and it could be done by staff. I didn't see any mention of it, and I just wanted to bring that up once again.
Terry, you did get that motion, I think was at a workshop meeting, wasn't it? That wasn't a council meeting. Terry, you got that direction?
I think so. I mean, I have to go back in the notes, top of my head, but yes, I think we were committed to doing that feasibility study in 2021.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll have that information for Phyllis and for the rest of the council to have a look at. Thanks. All right.
Capital list.
I'm sorry, Tom?
It's in the capital list.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Perfect. I didn't catch it. Thanks for that. Connie Leishman, Councillor Leishman, you're next.
Thank you. I think it would help a lot if the councillors went back to their halls and asked them to be really honest about what they want to do. We don't have enough to do the full fads on all the halls. Let's be honest. And this money isn't going to come free. It's going to be a loan that we're going to have to pay back. So be fair about what you want and try and be a little more minimalist, because we're cutting down on, and if you want to get this done sooner than later, minimalist is probably better. And now that we've sort of got a bit of an indication from the accessibility committee that they're not looking for a full fads right away. It's something we can work on. If we could just get them in the halls to enjoy the halls when we're allowed to, that would probably make all the difference to them. So I would like everybody to be quite honest about what you want to do. I did have that meeting with my board on, I forget when it was, the 4th, I believe. And I was brutally honest with them. So I think that's probably something they should think about. Anyway, that's just me. Bye.
Great. So thank you, Council. Deputy Mayor, you're the only one who didn't speak. So I'm just looking to you if you have anything you want to throw in regards to small halls. Okay.
For some reason, my unmute button wasn't working. I was trying to unmute and it wouldn't work. No, obviously we have to have the meetings with the hall boards and find out what they're expecting, what they want. You know, I think we need to get some reality checks of where we plan to go, and then we can start. Once we know what they expect and what they want, then we can start talking about a budget, whether we are going to borrow money to do or what we aren't prepared to pay for. You know, so I think we're going to get the meetings happening immediately.
Great. Thank you. So Terry, let's go right back to you. Go ahead, Terry, you get your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say, so what I've captured is I'll work with yourself and the clerk's department to set up our next first brainstorming session with council. We'll share the templates and get all the information out there to help you guys make the best decisions possible. And then from there, we'll put a plan of attack to meet each of the halls.
Okay. All right, council, you got that information. That's great. All right, council, then I think we've covered all the items that, yes, Councillor Patterson, go ahead.
I anticipated that you, with all that good discussion about the small halls, you might have forgot the 4th one momentarily. my list on December 14th included the expanded.
I have it right here, Tom.
Policing
I've got it
enforcement.
right here.
So we don't have to belabor it. I think we know the point, but in the spirit of what you just said on the other three, I think that's something we need to, and I know the clerk is already starting the conversation with the OPP, so.
Yeah, we're having conversations with discussions about enforcement and OPP operations. I think I mentioned this at our council meeting on Monday, that I'm going to be talking to our new
The replacement for Terry.
yeah, it's another acting inspector, which unfortunately, I mean, it's great. I'm glad we've got an inspector here, an acting inspector. I'm just hoping that we can, get a little bit of permanency, and then that way we can work and know what type of expectations we would have. And that speaks for all three communities that are part of Huronia West too. Wasaga Beach and Springwater also are in the same sort of situation. We want to know what our level of policing is going to remain or continue or improve or whatever. So certainly we're going to be having those conversations, and council will be involved in that. Okay, thank you. Anybody else with anything else? That's great. Let's go to item number 3.2 on our agenda. And this is now in a council session where Kelly is provided us with a report, which also includes a recommendation to move to have her prepare final budget. So I'll read this and I'll call for the mover and seconder. A recommendation that item 1, that we receive the 2021-2025 budget approval report for information. And item number 2, approve the 2021-2025 budget as amended, with a net tax increase of 1.59%. And item 3, direct the treasurer to prepare the final budget package and the tax rate bylaw for approval. Okay, can I get a mover and seconder? That'll be Tom Patterson, and that'll be Connie Leishman. Tom Patterson, Connie Leishman. And is there any questions of the motion or questions of Kelly's second report on this agenda? Councillor Lamers, go ahead.
Thank you. When are we discussing the public participation portion of this?
We had a public meeting at our last meeting of the budget discussion. And so public participation in that for this item would happen when we bring this back at the meeting where the actual bylaw would be presented. Would that be, Kelly, would that be April, May, or April, 1st of April? Is that what you're looking to target, Kelly?
Yeah, this, to your worship, Councillor Lamers, the final tax rate bylaw is usually done either end of April, beginning of May, depending on when I get all of the finalized numbers in. So that's sort of our goal.
Councillor Lamers, that help?
Yeah, wasn't Dan to prepare a report on the one that was brought forward for New Lowell for those sidewalks?
Let's ask Dan a question. Dan, can you advise us on the sidewalk discussion and where we are on that?
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Lamers. So there was no direction given by council, I don't believe, at the last meeting, at the public meeting. There was a request, I believe, from a resident to extend the sidewalk in New Lowell on County Road 9 easterly from where it ends now. So, if council would like me to provide costing, that one's a bit trickier. There's a little bit more work than just putting a sidewalk there. There'd be some engineering requirements as far as drainage and filling in ditches and things like that. So, I'm aware of the request from the resident. I'm just not sure where that lays. That sits right now as far as direction from council.
All right, don't go away. Go ahead, John, if you want to speak to that. I'm just going to turn off my phone. Go ahead, John. Mr. Lamers.
She sent a request in for, what was it, from where it stops on County Road 9 from Lamers Road to the edge of town. And she sent that in as a budget request for 2021. And there was nothing else said at that. And it's going to be an expensive thing to fill in a ditch and put culverts in there. So it's going to have to be engineered, or somebody else is going to have to come in and look at this.
No, I totally agree. You know, there is extensive work. It's not as simple as putting a sidewalk there. However, you know, a request made by the public, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that they get that work done, right? So council would have to I guess give direction to staff if they want to proceed with that portion of sidewalk. I can certainly put together some pricing and some engineering. There's going to be extensive engineering work, because not only is there a ditch there, you know, that drains the road, presumably it drains some yards as well. Some of those, there's about 6 houses there, I believe. So, you know, not only is it affecting road drainage, but it's going to affect property drainage as well.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Don't go away. Mr. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, may I suggest to Councillor Lamers that I know this was sorry, I know this was brought up. I may suggest to Councillor Lamers that he put forth a motion for reserve. You pick the dollar figure, but I request a reserve to be put into the budget, and we'll vote on it. And if you at least get a reserve started, it may not happen this year, but you know, if you get the reserve started, then at least it's there and you're moving forward instead of just sitting and waiting.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We actually have a reserve right now that we already enhanced for sidewalk work in this process. Dan, what's the status on your reserve for sidewalks, and are you looking for more enhancement on that, or is that something that you can report back to council on?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Yeah, the reserve was really meant for urbanization.
Right.
That was how it was presented to council. So for portions of the municipality where there either is sidewalk currently, or there is no sidewalk, that we would propose, or we had proposed to start a reserve for urbanization of those, I'll call them rural urban areas. The enhancement of this year's 2021 sidewalk budget has already been laid out for those sections that were in the budget. So, you know, certainly we probably need additional monies if we were to proceed with that section of sidewalk on County Road 9.
All right. Oh, geez, everybody's jumping in. I'm trying to look it up here while you're talking. I'll go back to the Deputy Mayor and then to Tom. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship, and I agree totally with what Dan has said, that money was already earmarked. So that's why I was suggesting Councillor Lamers. So let me assist Councillor Lamers here. I'm going to put forth a motion that an additional $100,000 be put aside for the for this particular section of sidewalk that he's requesting. I can't remember the exact details. At least get a reserve started so that they can at least start getting the engineering done and stuff like that. And I would recommend that gets done with taxation.
Yeah, so he's putting a motion on the floor. First of all, before we go with that, Dan, is that $100,000? Is that more, or how much is this thing going to cost before we ask for a seconder?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, for the sidewalk portion only, so just concrete work, I'm anticipating that based on 2020 costs, that portion of sidewalk would be nearly $75,000 for new sidewalk installation. So, you know, any additional infilling of the ditch, storm sewer work, things like that would be extra. So $100,000 would certainly get us, you know, a good idea of what that cost will be for 2022, and we could also, you know, reserve some of that $100,000 for 2022 construction.
So your answer is that that's an appropriate value. So thank you, Deputy Mayor, for putting that forward. Councillor Lamers, what's your yes? Is that just a seconding it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that'll get him started on the engineering portion of it to see what the total cost is going to be in 2022.
Okay. All right. So now we've got a seconder. Councillor Patterson, did you have a comment on that? I saw your card earlier.
I did. I didn't anticipate we were going to add $100,000 now to our
Me
budget.
neither.
Just went through it. So my comment was, and still stands, is I wouldn't, I think, I'm glad that Councillor Lamers recognized one of his residents had asked for something, and we shouldn't just leave it hanging. But I don't think we should be adding any more money to the sidewalk, which we all have priorities for in all our communities, at least until we've seen the street scan output, which will generate many more hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure that we need to add. I have had just in Creemore alone, not Ward 5, more than a couple or $300,000 worth of sidewalk work that has to be done in the urban area. So we have a reserve. I don't think we should be setting aside a specific reserve fund for a specific location. I think it should come out of the priorities that reserve is there to serve, minus a framework that we have. We don't have a framework right now in terms of setting up priorities. That's what Street Scan was there to do. In one sense, in my mind, is to help us set our urban and small rural priorities. And so I don't think we should be entertaining a budget to add money today.
Thank you very much for the comment. I see Mike Ron has joined us, but I just want to look, is anybody else on council? Just give me your cards, but I'm going to go to Mike Ron first. Okay, thank you guys. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to add something. Absolutely, Dan's got all of our sidewalks under control. I just want to reinforce what Dan said, that the money we put in for sidewalks in the budget was more for places that may not have been picked up under our development charges. Places where multiple people are using the sidewalks. Council does have the option. So a local improvement that typically, if we put infrastructure in that benefits a small group, as we did in the southwest corner of Stainer Industrial Servicing, right? Those costs were all split amongst the benefiting users. So if it's a real need, the subdivision that when it was built should have put the sidewalk in. And when they don't do that, if it's an afterthought, the sidewalk could be built and all those people could share those costs through a servicing bylaw. I'd have to get somebody to double check on, whether it's Kelly or Gary Scanlon, but just want to reiterate that money we put aside was more for places in town where sidewalks may be lacking to benefit everybody. If it's just a single group, there is another option. But if council wants to do it differently, that's your prerogative.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Barry, I'm sure you want to speak, but I've got Walker, Leishman, and then McKechnie. So we'll go with that. Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say that I can't support adding $100,000 into reserve or whatever at this time. We've got one request from one taxpayer, and I think that needs to just be given to the department to do a preliminary look at to see what's going to be involved, and then hear back and go from there. I can't see adding any more money to the budget at this time because that would add another full percentage point almost. So I can't support that whatsoever.
Great, thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Leishman is next, then McKechnie, then back to Barry. Go ahead, Connie. Yeah, Councillor Leishman, you're up next.
Thank you. I'm not sure what you said, Doug, because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Did you hear Councillor Walker?
Yes, I heard him, but I didn't hear you.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, you kind of died out there, Your Worship. So it sounds like your microphone died on yours.
You know what? I got to tell you, I was on a conference call this morning and I had some issues here too. So I may talk to our IT department about getting an actual microphone or something for this. But anyway, I'm going to speak a little louder. How's that? Councillor Leishman, you're next. Then I have Barry right after you. Go ahead.
I have no more to add to what Councillor Walker said. I can't support this on this budget, but I will support a report from staff to how much it will cost and then cost it out for 2022, but not this year. I think our budget is done, and especially now with COVID, I think we're done. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Barry, you're up next.
Yeah, I just, totally understand what Dan and Mike are saying and agree that the money's in the budget, that are already in the budget, are already earmarked. And that's why I put forth that motion for that. Now, I've heard from several people in that community about, why isn't the sidewalk extended? So it's not just a one person thing. I've heard from other members of the community is why wasn't the sidewalk extended along. But anyways, it's the motion's on the floor. We take the vote. If it wins, it wins. If it's defeated, it's defeated.
Okay, speaking of microphones, yours all faded out right there too. Anyway, no big deal. Mr. Perot, go ahead, Dan.
Your worship, maybe just a suggestion to council that for the amount of work that it would require for us to at least investigate the possibility of placing a sidewalk there and obtaining costs on what the construction might look like, I propose that I'd feel comfortable using a portion of our operating budget for consulting to obtain our engineers to do a brief look at this sidewalk, this area for the installation of a sidewalk. So, if council were in favor of that, I don't think it's going to be a lot of money to at least look at it from our existing operating budget in consulting on our consulting line. So that's an option for council if they choose.
Thank you very much, Dan. I'm going to go right back to Tom. Tom, you're next, and then I see Barry one more time to wrap it up. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just gonna, Dan has said it, but just like he did with my request for George Street, what we did for the sidewalks along County Road 9, where else did we talk about? I can assure John and Barry that they know how to scope out the linear feet costs and the cost for all the drainage that's required with it. It's quite complicated. It's just not formed concrete that goes down a prescribed width and a length. It gets into a lot. So I've had to live with that, and I would ask your resident to understand and live with that same kind of a process. So I appreciate Dan for making that suggestion.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Burton?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, if John's willing to withdraw his seconder, and enter a new motion that we direct staff to prepare a proposal on the cost for putting sidewalks in that particular area on County Road 9.
Okay. Mr. Lamers, would you like to second that?
Yeah, he's withdrawing the motion, making another one to get an estimate cost for the add into the 2022 budget.
No, just to clarify, is the cost to do the engineering or do the report is going to come out of the 2021 budget for sidewalks. Is that correct, Dan? I'm trying to use Dan's words here because he said it.
It would come out of our, sorry, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Burton, it would come out of our operating line for consulting services.
So that's where the money would come from to prepare the proposal and get the costing done. So I think everybody understands my motion.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Lamers. Since we have a new motion on the floor, I'll ask again. I see, Tom, you had a question up. Go ahead.
Well, in other words, I think what Dan was saying is the money's already there. It's in our operating budget. Won't take it out, so we don't need a motion. It's a commitment. We've done that before.
I disagree because we're giving Dan specifically asked for direction to focus on that particular thing. So that's why the motion is there, because Dan asked for specific direction. So that's the purpose of the motion, to give direction.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Patterson and Burton, Deputy Mayor Burton. That's right. I believe this is a motion just asking for direction from council to be given to staff to work on this project. So that's it, which is a pretty normal procedure actually when it comes to doing council business. All right, on the motion presented by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Lamers, on the motion to direct staff to do an investigation and report back on costing for the sidewalk. We have a mover and seconder. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? No, it's all in favor. Thank you. Okay, now council. Thank you, Dan. Council, we're going to go back to item 3.2, of which I've already read, and we had a mover and seconder, which I believe was Patterson and Leishman, when Councillor Lamers needed to bring up that other point. So thank you for that. So are there any questions on the motion with the three recommendations, which then direct the treasurer to prepare the tax rate bylaws for approval? Seeing no further questions, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. All right, so thank you very much to members of council. And further, thank you to our members of our staff who are working on the budgets and frankly deal with their departmental budgets every single day. And so thank you for all the work that you've done on that so far. And I look forward to our seeing this show up at a regular council meeting sometime, as we said, April, perhaps May, but I'm hoping for April. Before I read bylaw to confirm, Tom, I saw your card. You have something else?
Yeah, if we're moving towards the bylaw to confirm proceedings, I just want to raise a point of personal privilege.
Sure.
On November 30th, council voted to hold a 2021 taxation contribution, to withhold the contribution to the senior housing project of $150,000. And prior to that meeting, council may not know that I gave Deputy Mayor Burton my word that I would not raise the issue until we had the planned social housing and senior housing workshop with the county. As such, I would agree that in further discussion with the Deputy Mayor, I acknowledge that I was not true to my word as I voted to reduce the amount of money to 150. So I just like to acknowledge the fact that, and I regret having done that, quite frankly. I'm sorry I did that, Barry, because I want to build a certain amount of integrity into this process. But having said that, I want to thank him for his patience, and because I know we all think that it's important for social housing, and my assurance to him that we will have a thoughtful and comprehensive discussion on this motion, on this project when it comes up. So that's my statement to our Deputy Mayor.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. That's important.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I was just going to throw it to you, Deputy Mayor. Do you have anything else? Thank you. So that's good.
I just wanted to say thank you for his comments.
All right, I appreciate that. Anybody else with anything for the good of the council meeting for this budget special meeting workshop? Nothing to see? Okay. We'll go to our bylaw to confirm the proceedings. Madam Clerk, recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 21-06, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the January 13, 2021 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 13th day of January 2021. A mover and seconder on this bylaw, Mr. Broderick, Ms. Deneen, Broderick and Deneen. And so you've heard the bylaw, council. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the motion carries. The bylaw carries. Before we go to motion to adjourn, I just want to have a quick commentary. I'm not surprised at the announcement from the province about asking people to stay home. I'm not surprised. Our community has seen increasing numbers of COVID exposures, and COVID testing is coming back. And I'm beginning. Well, I'm not beginning. I'm very confident that we are still going to see some dark days ahead in this province as far as our COVID numbers. And I would encourage and implore everyone to do their absolute best to limit any type of gatherings and do your best to protect yourselves and protect your families and our community. So I just want to state that out there because I do believe we are going to see our hospital, which is a wonderful hospital in our region. I believe they're going to be overrun with the number of cases. There already have COVID cases in our ICU right here in our Collingwood General Marine Hospital, and it's not a very big hospital. So let's all do our part, people. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Recommendation be it resolved that council meeting be adjourned. And I'm looking at 1:27 p.m. Councillor McKechnie, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Broderick, thank you. And I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And thank you, council. That passes. So we will adjourn the meeting. Wish you all a really good afternoon, and thank you very much for your participation. Thanks to our members of our staff and